Hello, you're listening to a Heroes Welcome, episode 27. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Wes. I'm here, as always, with Andrew. How was Overwatch, Andrew?
Overwatch has been pretty good. I've been having a lot of fun, yeah. No, the last couple of weeks I hadn't got a chance to play as much as I wanted to, but I got a chance this week to play quite a bit, so I'm doing pretty good. I actually moved up a little bit. Been playing a lot of like Zarya and McCree and such, so I've been having a lot of fun. How's your week been going?
Nice. Pretty good. Squeezing in games when I can. I'm still hovering, in the diamond. Eventually, master, maybe a week. Give me maybe a week.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I mean, I'm looking, like I said, hopefully I would like to definitely get back to platinum and maybe, higher, but we'll see how that goes. But like I said, I've been having a lot of fun. Overwatch has been pretty good lately. Got some interesting stuff going on this week, and yeah.
Yeah, the game's telling me that I need to group up with people to play properly. I mean, that's what the game's telling me.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like that in a lot of circumstances. I know I don't really have that benefit for the most part. Like, it's, I don't have a lot of friends that play at this time, especially when I play. Unfortunately, some of our schedules don't exactly
Maybe battle tag in the description,
but,
get some friends on.
Right, yeah, I know. I'm definitely going to have to, I'm sure, in the future group up, but hopefully I can at least move up a little bit before I start to group up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you could be successful solo queue, but I'm just going to keep ranting about solo queue until it comes out.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the one thing that we're definitely looking forward to, and hopefully they will hear us all the way down here, and maybe that they will make some changes to that. That's what we're looking forward to.
But yeah, we have a pretty good show, right? Obviously, a lot of talk about on the PTR just a few days ago. Brand new build on the PTR. It's looking very promising. Quite a bit of changes, more changes to the heroes than we're used to.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a lot about that because there's some interesting stuff going on with the PTR and kind of how they're choosing to do that this time around. So it's a lot different than what we're used to. So we're definitely going to be talking a lot about that. And, of course, some competitive stuff going on, a lot of cool stuff going on within, Overwatch, eSports, and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, some pretty big news. So let's go ahead and just get started, right? So let's talk about the Overwatch eSports League. This is pretty big news. I don't know about you, but when I heard this, I was very excited, looking forward, in the future, what we could expect. And obviously, it's really vague, and I'm expecting much more details at BlizzCon, which is only a couple weeks away. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, so I mean, this is one thing that we've talked a lot about, and I know previous episode we specifically, were questioning as to, when this might be happening, or if we were to suspect something, next year with BlizzCon next year. And this is kind of just, basically just answering that question as far as, are we actually going to see an established esports league for Overwatch? And so Wednesday at the Vanity Fair New Establishment Summit, Blizzard CEO, Activision Blizzard, Bobby Kotick, basically announcing and confirming that there will be an Overwatch league, a professional one, in the works sometime in the near future. We're not sure exactly when it's going to be. We don't know a lot of the details and that such, but it definitely looks promising.
Yeah, and most people could probably familiar with like League of Legends. They have their own league, right? And Heroes of the Storm, another Blizzard title. So we could probably expect it to be something like that. But pretty much it's the people who make the game, Blizzard in this case, are going to be putting out lots of money, obviously north of millions of dollars, I'm assuming.
Right.
And it's just something they support the game with. So what that allows is once you have the money there, then you can actually have the player base and other sponsors as well kind of come in, organizations.
Yeah, I mean, this is effectively, it's going to change the landscape for esports in general in Blizzard and especially with Overwatch because as we see it now, a lot of these teams are kind of getting in a lot on, the ground up for Overwatch and the esports, situation as it is now, and kind of a lot of it going off on faith that, Overwatch is going to take off as an esport. So it's kind of been very small right now with just, some small tournaments being put together by sponsors and such, and this is really going to change that for the near future.
I mean, we've had some pretty big tournaments, we still have like the weekly smaller things, which are great for up-and-coming teams and stuff to compete at. But I mean, we've had, honestly, for the few months games have been out, really good feedback. Blizzard seeing, the esports take off and the potential there, and they're backing that up with money, which is really good.
Yeah, and the thing is although, like you said, we've definitely seen some big tournaments as far as prize pool and notoriety and such like that. But this is really going to be very different because it's actually, like we said, it's Blizzard actually, backing up their esports for their game. And it's really going to be different because, a lot of times up until now, we've had tournaments that were stacked kind of really close to each other. Certain big teams were go to one and not to others. And a lot of times, the small weekly tournaments and such that we've seen, we didn't even see a lot of the big names that were at different tournaments. And this is really going to be the one tournament that people are going to look forward to every year for sure.
Yes, and I'm hoping we get a lot more details at BlizzCon. I'm assuming we will. Hopefully some surprises. I don't know, any specifics, but, some surprises, to kind of facilitate this news would be great.
Yeah, definitely. So you're going to have to keep a tab on everything and let us know when you get back from BlizzCon, since I probably will not be there, but I will be watching. I'll be there.
Yeah,
in
we'll
spirit.
have the virtual ticket. We'll be watching it. We'll be doing a lot of coverage. I'm sure it'll probably be, maybe the longest show we've ever done, probably that Sunday.
I'm sure. Once BlizzCon gets overway, we'll have a lot to talk about. I'm sure. I'm expecting some pretty big news coming from BlizzCon, so we will definitely keep you guys in the loop about that.
Right, and some other news. For those who have been following the Sombra stuff, I mean, we've covered it slightly in the past. I mean, and a lot of people might not be interested in all the little details because it's kind of like a very big like ARG.
Yeah, so there's a lot to talk about with it. A lot of things go into it, so we're not going to cover everything. In the past we kind of kept you up to date with it and kind of let you know a little bit, but we don't want to get into the weeds with it because a lot of people don't care about it, and especially now at this point, a lot of people are just getting tired of this long, drawn-out thing with Sombra. So, I mean, basically, the only thing to keep in mind note is that there is some big stuff going on with that. Of course, Blizzard is still continuing to dangle that carrot on a stick in front of us with Sombra, and we don't really have a lot of news with it, but there are some pretty cool updates going on with that.
Yeah, so for people who know absolutely nothing about what we're talking about, Blizzard's just kind of been like hinting and dropping little Easter eggs in the games and different like codes to break and decipher. There's like been multiple websites dedicated to this. So you have amomentincrime.com, which is dedicated to that, and also a brand new website,
Lumerico.
Yeah, Lumerico.mx.
Well.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. That's a new website that popped up with some more recent.
Yeah, and they've
activity.
done some really cool things with it. I mean, the thing is, it's been a real big cat and mouse game. They put out some sort of little tiny cheesy, Easter egg or little clue for us to pick up on. And of course, people who are really into that have picked up on those clues and kind of deciphered them for us. So kind of all started way back when with the Moment in Crime, and they had an actual like update ticker on there ticking up to 100%, and we were waiting on that to get to 100% and kind of stalled out a while back, and now it came back online with one of the recent updates for just a basic bugs patch that they did for it. So it actually hit 100%, and then we had some interesting things happen with Bastion. So if you actually go to Dorado with Bastion and you walk up to one of the Sombra terminals, he actually does a little Morse code, little beep, and they figured that out, and it actually led them to Lumerico.mx, and like we said, we'll have that in the links. You can go check that out. There's a lot of cool things going on there that you can check out. So yeah, it's just this big web of clues and back and forth thing.
Yeah, because her character's like a hacker. I mean, we don't know a lot about her, but we know that she's a hacker. There was that leak of the photo or the screenshot last week or so, which looks pretty legitimate, but we'll see if that's the end of what she looks like. But I mean, it follows her character. Definitely has some ties with the gang in Mexico.
Right, the Los Muertos.
Los Muertos, yeah. And then also with Talon later.
With Talon as well. So, yeah, I mean, she's definitely been revealed to be a pretty legitimate hacker, and of course we see that with, Bastion being hacked and having that little Morse code beep. Then all the way, if you look into the Lumerico, it looks like we're seeing a lot of back and forth with her and this company as well that's going on in Mexico. So we'll kind of have to keep it in touch and see what happens there. But I'm assuming, like we said, since there hasn't been any release with the Halloween special holiday, we'll probably get her or at least get some information at BlizzCon.
Yeah, there might be something coming November 1st, right? That was like a date dropped.
Right, possibly. So if you go on the website, there is a mention of November 1st of something possibly going on with the company. So we'll have to see. Maybe that's a clue for us that something might be coming on November 1st.
I mean, my guess is she's going to hack herself into the game somehow. Maybe it'll be like a brawl or something, like a random something.
Right.
Because that's like the week before BlizzCon,
Right.
And she'll probably be playable after. Something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean that'd be really cool. Like I said, the one thing that I've been kind of going back and forth with is just I really hope that they do a really cool thing with her and actually make it something interesting as to how she gets added into the game and not just given to us like we've had with some of the other characters. So I mean she's definitely a really cool character just from what we know with her, and she's definitely going to be a big game changer. I expect for things to come in the future. So.
Right, so let's move on to some blue posts, right? So we call them blue posts, but pretty much you have like the game director and other people who work at Blizzard. We call them blue posts because on the forums, they just communicate. They're pretty good at communicating. You could honestly on a daily basis, people who work at Overwatch communicating, people in the community asking questions or so on and so forth. So let's talk about just some important stuff. So Jeff Kaplan, which is the game director, most people know him. Let's talk about. He had a post about troll picks, right?
Right. So, I mean, I think it's one of the things that most people are familiar with, whether you play in the, the lower ratings or the higher ratings. Is generally what's considered to be a troll pick, someone who's just picking a character. Maybe it's because it's somebody they like, or maybe it's just because they don't really care. They're not trying. They're just trying to have fun. Especially we're talking in competitive mainly. This is important. So there are certain heroes in the game that are always kind of perceived to be a troll pick. And it's not something that stays the same. Of course, it's something that kind of changes with the meta.
Yeah, so he's just pretty much saying that, obviously when they design the game, they don't want any of their characters to be perceived as a troll pick. I just finished a competitive game. I had a 76 on my team, and I'm like, oh, that's a troll pick. I mean, why are you going to play 76? There's way better heroes. But maybe I'm part of the problem.
Well, this is the thing. The meta shifts, and, some characters become part of that troll pick, and some characters move into the actual meta, and they're seen a lot more. So in the past, we've seen a lot of McCree, and he was pretty much the one that was perceived as the main character in that role of the damage dealer instead of someone like a 76. And then we did see a brief moment when McCree kind of got nerfed a little bit with his flashbang combo, and we've seen a lot more soldier. So we actually seen high rated players playing a lot of soldier, and now he's kind of moved back since McCree is kind of back in the meta. Soldier's kind of been out of it a little bit as well.
Yeah, so it's just the philosophy of the game and how they go about designing things. Obviously, they want people to play all the characters, not feel they're hindered very much. But I mean, I think they focus mainly on the fun factor. So you'll have the Torbjorns and stuff. I mean, they're not going to make changes like to force them to be in the meta. And then most likely what's going to happen is it's never fun to play against that person because he's OP or whatever, the turret's OP or something. So they have to strike a balance between, as long as it's fun, it doesn't have to be like in the meta crazy.
Well, and this is the thing, the meta shifts so much that it's not really possible to just force someone to be in the meta unless you do, like you said, and make them completely overpowered, and then you're, causing major problems within the meta. So I think ultimately their goal is to just keep every hero as close to, that possible meta as possible, and just kind of keep them in a good spot for themselves, and just make it to where people who like that character will pick up that character and find a way to make that character be a part of the meta. And that's how the meta shifts. Someone will pick up a character or hero and they'll be really good with them, and they'll figure out a cool strategy or composition to run around that character, and all of a sudden now that's the meta, and that's kind of where things are. So they just want to make sure that everybody knows that their intention is that they want to make every hero as best they can, and they don't want anything to be considered a troll pick.
Yeah, and he was also mentioning how internally they wrestle with the issue that players get upset with sometimes if, the meta's really stale, so it kind of like, they put the burden on Blizzard, make some changes, make it less stale, but then you have the people on the other side, right, that don't like it changed.
Right, so, and that's really a thing is, we really got to change the way we think about that, because ultimately, the meta is not something that's created by Blizzard. It's not something that is going to be changed by them. It's changed by the players. The players decide what is the meta and how that kind of unfolds. So as players, we need to, make sure that we're trying different things, that we're, trying to make sure that we think of things differently, and that's how new strategies get developed. And of course, there's always going to be people on both sides of the coin, some people that like change and some people are just don't want change. So that's kind of a normal thing, especially for games.
So how do you feel, Andrew, about changing the game? You like it when it gets often changed? Or?
I like it when there's constant iteration. I don't like it when there's huge change for no reason. So I think, constant little changes here and there are always good, and it shows that, the team is constantly looking at things and interested in how the game is playing and making sure that it's the best it possibly can. But I don't like major changes just for the sake of making changes. I think that's what the players are for. The players will find a way to make characters good and make strategies work around that.
Yeah, my favorite meta shift is when you add a new hero.
Yeah,
they should do a lot of
that's
that.
really where that comes from. Yeah, I mean, that's where we see a lot of meta shifting as well. So is when players come into the game.
Yep, and we should be seeing one soon here, definitely within a month, right? At least.
Yeah, and
for the
I
longest.
expect with the way that she's been kind of described so far, the way what we know from her, it's going to be a pretty big meta
Talking
shift.
about Sombra?
Sombra, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine that there's not going to be a huge, change in the meta when she comes. And I mean, that's one of the things where, like we said, in the past with like the 3-tank meta and stuff, it was really stale. And, of course, it had to come to a point where, players just had to kind of change the way that they play. And now that's kind of been relegated away now.
Right, so let's talk about another blue post. This one's by Jeff Goodman. He is a principal designer. He's been pretty active on the forums, and of course we love to hear from people who are on the team.
And of course, we always love to hear from Kaplan. He is the game director. He's the one ultimately guiding the direction of the game and kind of leading everything to where it's going. So we give him a lot of credit because his vision is really what's being played out in the game. But Jeff Goodman is the lead principal designer, and he really is the one who knows the game in and out. When you talk to him or when you hear him post about something or tweet about whatever, you can just tell how much he knows the game and how much he cares about it. It really kind of shows through with him.
Right, and if I think of other game developers, I mean, we're kind of spoiled with the Blizzard games. I mean, I played pretty much all the games, so I'm kind of used to it. But I mean, if you think of other games, I mean, you wouldn't. I mean, you would never see the game developers, putting a camera on them and giving you an update about the state of the game and all the background, like, oh, we're thinking about this and this was a failure, so we scrapped that. I mean, that transparency. I mean, it's just interesting. I mean, to me, it's just interesting. And it also gives you, sight of the future, right? Because you kind of get in their head like, oh, this is how they perceive their game, and you could use that to be like, that's the direction you want to take the game. And I mean, you could be for that or against that, but at least the future of the game and the direction.
Yeah, and like you said, we're definitely spoiled with Blizzard and Blizzard games and the way that they actually put themselves out there and give us so much insight and really keep us up to date because, especially we think about console games or other games like that, even other just standalone PC games that we talk about. It's more of a good and a goods and a consumer, purchasing thing. It's like we make this product. It is what it is. You either like it or you don't like it. You buy it or you don't buy it, and that's the end of it. Blizzard doesn't do that. They actually care about their player base enough that they're willing to hear the player base, make changes. They want to make the game the best they can. It's a vision with them. It's less of a here's our product, you either buy it or you don't buy it. That's the difference between Blizzard and a lot of other game developers out there.
All right, so that Blizzard commercial's out of the way. Soldier 76 is what Jeff was talking about, right? So a lot of changes have been speculated about him. We haven't seen a bunch of him. They did make some changes in the past about the burst because there was kind of a strategy that wasn't really ideal and wasn't, like I was saying earlier, like prioritizing the fun factor, right? To be able to maximize and play a character correctly. So they talked about how they previously had like instantaneous recovery on the bullet spread. So we're talking about, when you burst the bullet spread and before you literally just had to be, let go for just a fraction of a second and the spread would return.
Right, and that caused a lot of bad reflections on the game because people were making macros and people who realized how things worked, they were just making it so efficient that it was almost like there wasn't even a break or a space between that precision firing and just being able to fire constantly with them. So it's really making a huge difference between the players who understood that and the players who didn't. It's more of, like we said, with the whole Widowmaker scoping animation too. It's more of the same kind of thing with that.
Yeah, and we'll get to the patch notes and we'll talk about, what's coming. But yeah, a lot of Soldier does revolve around that spread of his, machine gun. So they give us like two different paths that they could have gone to solve this issue. Either they just could have removed the spread altogether so everyone's on an even playing field, so you don't have any macros, you don't have any weird play styles where you're just like randomly taking your finger off every few seconds.
But then it takes away the depth of the character, and it takes away any skill whatsoever, any difference between him and say someone like a McCree. McCree doesn't have that spread on his left click because it's a single shot, so it doesn't matter. But so they really decided to not go with removing the spread altogether because they wanted Soldier to feel like his own character.
Yeah, so the other option, which is the one they opted to go with, is pretty much just make Soldier more effective in short bursts and closer range. Obviously, the spread isn't, very...
Right. So they made changes. They made several changes to it before. So basically, the way it works now is, his spread begins a little bit earlier than it used to begin, and it's on a pretty sharp curve. So right away, immediately, it spreads a little bit, but you can kind of get away with it. And then immediately, it starts to spread a lot. And what they're doing now is they're actually making it to where it spreads more overall at the very end of it. So if you just hold down left click, the spread gets pretty big and it takes longer to recover. So it makes it more important to fire in bursts. But of course, if you're in short range of someone, or if you're going up against a tank like a Zarya or something, then the spread isn't that different.
Yeah, and we'll get into the better, more details in the...
Yeah,
PTR.
I mean, there's a lot more, like I said, a lot of changes going on with the PTR that Soldier is a big part of. So,
All right, so let's talk about the PTRs, because that's obviously going to be the bulk of the show, right? So on the 20th of October, we got a PTR. So just to let people know, if you don't know, anyone could go into the PTR. I'm sure it still works, but you just copy your data files and put them in the file. You don't have to download the game all over again. Just a little quick tip there.
right, so it's much quicker than having to actually go and download the whole PTR as well.
Yeah, you just start the download, and then it'll create the folders, and then you can just copy and paste your current folders, and then obviously you'll still have some more stuff to download, but it'll expedite it quite a bit.
Yeah, it makes it a lot shorter. So that's a little trick you guys can use to get into the PTR if you want to check it out. One thing we wanted to stress specifically with the PTR is there's a big difference in this PTR and past PTRs that we've had. So if you played the PTR in the past, there were very small changes, or even if there were bigger changes, there was a small amount of changes, so they can really wrap their head around how that changes affect the game. And then it was up for a short amount of time. They got their feedback they wanted, made their whatever changes that they need to make, and then they implement it into the game.
Yeah, some of the things I want to mention is this is slated to come out after the Halloween event, so it's still a ways away. That includes like the experience reduction. There's we'll get there, but pretty much like 10% less experience needed to level. But yeah, so don't expect it like super soon, and obviously there'll probably be some changes, some tweaks here and before now and then.
Right, so there's already been changes, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, so basically all we wanted to make sure you guys are aware of is that these changes are not coming out right away. They will be a little bit later than usual, and we're going to see big changes. So just don't be freaked out when you see some of the changes that are coming, because of course they are subject to change, and really ultimately they just want to put out bigger changes and see how those are ultimately going to affect things, and then they'll kind of dial in how they want it. So they're going to be a lot more and a lot bigger changes.
So have you tried the PTR yourself?
Yeah, so I did try out a little bit of the PTR a couple of days, so definitely tried out Soldier, and I did try out Mei a little bit. I hadn't had a chance to play like Ana or Diva, but I did try it out a little bit.
So they have new like images for play game and stuff. It looks really sharp, doesn't it?
Yes, it looks very good. I'm very happy with the way that they've changed the UI and stuff. I mean, the UI was good in the past, but now I think it really looks sharp, and it doesn't take too much of the space. Like I feel like it's a little bit pared back UI wise. So it really looks good and looks clean.
All right, so yeah, let's break it down. So I mentioned it, already, but experience needed to level is going to be reduced. So level 1 to 13 will be unchanged. I guess from 14 to 100, there'll be a slight reduction, and it ends up being about 10% less.
About 10% less, yeah. So you'll get there a lot quicker to that 100.
Yes, because right now, once you're past 20 or whatever, it's 22,000.
Right.
And it'll be just 20,000. Nice even number.
Right, so it's even. It's a little bit reduced. Then each level after 100 is going to be constant at 20,000 again, like you mentioned, and it's no longer going to reset with each promotion.
Okay, and so that's pretty straightforward. So let's talk about Hero Balance. So there's some general changes coming. Something that I've actually been wanting for and asking for quite a long time.
I've been looking forward to this too, because specifically, the game has almost become revolved so much around ultimates,
which is okay, because you want them to be impactful, but you don't want it to. You want ability and skill
to shine, whether the ultimates are available or not. And I think some of the ultimates, like we talk about, Soldier's ultimate is kind of easy mode. That you don't really have to be great to get actual things done with his ultimate. You just kind of pop it and you just shoot, pretty much.
Pretty much just flank, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, really, ultimately having less uptime on ultimates, it really is going to be better for the better skilled
Yeah, so
players.
currently we should say what it is, but the ultimate costs have been increased by 25%, pretty much across the board. So people are going to be generating ults a little bit slower, and obviously, we said it could be different, but I think that's fair because a lot of people, I mean, I don't know about you, but my Reinhardt's getting hit by this, and I'm playing Ana, and I just love the free ult charge. I mean, he runs into a Junkrat still trap intentionally because it's not going to kill him, and I'm going to get some free ult charge off it. It's kind of funny how it works, but we want ults to be impactful, but you don't want them to be happening all the time. You don't want just the ults to determine the outcome of the game.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think about some of the games I played recently, and it's a matter of, like, if something happens, your team gets wiped, you group back up, you try and kind of consolidate all your ults, get them all ready together, and then it's just like an ult fest. Everybody just kind of pops their ults, one right after another at the same time, and they kind of use them together, and you're just able to take control, and it's really hard for the opposing team to really deal with, multiple ults coming out. If you have a Genji ult and you have a Break It Down and you have a Zarya ult, it's kind of hard to deal with that, especially, it gets to the point where it gets overwhelming. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, why it favors the attacker so much, because eventually you're going to get the points, the capture point maps and stuff, which, I've been playing so much Temple Anubis today.
I'm sure you love all that Temple.
Best map in the world. But anyways, along the lines of the ult charge, so dealing damage to non-players, so like turrets and teleporters and such, are not going to generate ults.
Right, so that's, again, just another kind of nerf to ultimate charging, period, is, we're used to just being...
But it's a buff to the players that use those.
Right, exactly. It's a buff to those characters like Torbjorns and and to Zarya's, Symmetras and such, that they're not going to be as focused on that as well. And it doesn't, again, like you said, it doesn't grant charge to players. So again, it's going to make charging your ult a little bit slower, along with the 25% increase in cost.
But there'll always be a road dog you could generate your ult off of.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You just let him heal himself and then just shoot him some more.
Yeah. All right,
so let's try to avoid those hooks.
All right, so let's talk about some specific heroes. Let's start with D.Va. So pretty big changes. I'm looking forward to D.Va. I'm actually saw some D.Va YouTube videos earlier. I'm really pumped up to play some D.Va. So maybe I'll wait for this patch, but it's a while away.
I know I've talked about in the past. I really like what they did with her defense matrix, but I hate playing against her in some ways because it's just kind of annoying the way that now she just has so much uptime on that. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to see more D.Va because I don't see as much still. But
I see quite a bit. I'm seeing more of him for sure. So quite a bit of changes.
Very, very like specifically in certain situations, I see him a lot. But a lot of people switching on and off of her. So it'll be interesting to see if she becomes more of like a main tank-oriented player. But
yeah, so the mech health is going to be increased to 200 because right now it's 100 and has 400 armor, so total 500. So it should have a total of 600. Pretty significant change, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty significant. Just keep in mind it is only health, so her armor is not going up. So we talked about that in the past. Armor is obviously much better than health, but just having an extra 100 health lying around is going to be quite a bit, and that's of course only in her mech. But
remember in beta, armor wasn't even healable.
Right,
that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
not really that long ago, but I mean,
it seems like a decade ago, but yeah, not quite. But
yeah, so she'll have quite a bit more health. The movement speed while firing, this is a pretty big change. Is going to be increased 25%.
Right, so she's going to be moving a lot quicker, so that's going to allow her to kind of get in there and break things up a lot better. She's used to having to kind of boost into the fight and then just stand still kind of and fire, so this means you got to actually kind of keep on your toes and watch out for her a little bit more.
Yeah, so she'll still be slowed slightly, but you never have to reload, which is a very benefit from her. Maybe the downside is she's really noisy and loud with the mech. You can't be sneaky. You can't.
Yeah, I've seen people try. It doesn't usually work out, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm saying you can't crouch with her. You can't be quiet.
Exactly. So
I guess you got to give and take, right? So yeah, so the movement speed is faster while firing, a little bit more health in the mech, and when you're out of the mech, it'll be a little bit faster to get your mech back. And this is kind of countering, right, the global, increase in charge times. So when she's baby D.Va,
right,
outside of her mech, it'll be easier for her to get her mech back, pretty much.
Right, exactly. So like we said, the global is 25% increased cost on ultimate, and her cost is going to be 20% reduced from that. So she'll be almost just back to where she was before. So it won't feel quite as long to get back in that mech suit.
Yeah. I mean, I like Baby Diva. Her gun does good damage, especially if you're like really far away and you're just shooting down the corridors. Like, oh, maybe I'll stay a little bit longer.
Yeah, if you don't pay attention to her, she can really wreck people with that Baby Diva. But
And she has like some of the best voice lines. Boom shakalaka.
right, really good voice lines. So yeah, I mean, she's a very good character. Hopefully, we'll see a lot more of her. Definitely.
All right, so let's talk about Soldier 76. We talked a little bit about him before. The changes are going to be revolved around the pulse rifle, right? So the bullet damage has been increased from 17 to 20. Pretty significant change.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot. We're talking about very small numbers, 17 to 20. But we're talking about his pulse rifle and how quickly he's able to put that damage out there. It is a pretty big increase. Now, keep in mind, like we said, the bullet spread did increase. Its max spread from 2.2 to about 2.4. Again, seems like very small numbers, and it's not meant to make a huge change. Like we said, it's just his max spread. Obviously, if you let it go that far, it's going to take a lot longer to recover from that spread. So you just want to keep short bursts with him.
Right. So yeah, it's pretty much a choice you have to make actively while playing him. Right. So once you're shooting at something that's at a further distance, you're going to want to burst. So you shoot, stop, shoot, stop. I mean, maybe stop. Shoot a grenade or something like that. Helix rocket.
Right.
But so if they're close, obviously, you just hold left click and they'll probably all meet whoever you're trying to shoot at.
Exactly. So not a huge difference with him, but hopefully we will see that put to good use, because I feel like with increased damage at closer range, we might see some different things working out with that, because we already have kind of McCree is in his place. Soldier and McCree were kind of pitted head to head for the longest time, where McCree always usually being the stronger because his damage output was a lot higher as long as your skill was good. So now they're kind of trying to, I feel like, separate them a little bit. McCree is kind of a little bit more longer range than Soldier is now, so Soldier's kind of being put to that front line. But with his healing and some of his other utility, he can still be really used really well. So
yeah, I think Soldier is still a good medium range character, and yeah, he's good. I mean, the damage decrease is going to help him a lot, and yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, let's talk about my favorite new hero, Ana.
Yes, I know. I watched you play quite a bit of Ana, so it seems like you're really, really taking a liking to Ana.
And I still haven't bought a golden weapon from season 1. I'm sitting, I'm almost at cap here. I got to spend it here soon, but I'm thinking Ana might be the one. But the thing is, I noticed, I'm using the Halloween skin. There's like a spider web on the gun. When you have the golden weapon, it just looks generic. It takes off the spider webs and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, she does have a kind of cool costume. Like I said in the past, I'm really weird about that. I don't really like a lot of some of the costumes. I prefer kind of the base costumes, especially like Zarya.
Have you seen her emote where she sprinkles the candy?
Yes, I have seen it.
Okay, thank you.
I've seen it, yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
That's a must for sure.
That's a must, yeah.
I mean, when you kill someone, you just sprinkle candy all over their body.
Yeah, see, and I was actually looking because I've been playing a lot more Zarya. And I was actually looking because I'm like, man, maybe she has a really cool costume, because I'm not crazy about her default look either. But still, I think her regular base look is much better. So,
a lot of people like the track one, from the summer games.
Yeah, I'm not.
But I'm rocking the Siberian one, where she's all
really coated up. She had that big coat on and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'll change it up. I'm sure I'll change it up at some point. But there's other characters like Genji. Genji's of course automatic. You change it to one of his alternate costumes. He has a couple really cool ones that I like that I kind of switch between. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll see more in the future and we'll see some different ones. But
so let's talk about Ana, right? So just one really easy change, right? The nano boost is no longer going to increase movement speed. She's arguably probably the best character in the game. That's not why I like her so much. I'm still gonna play her. I still think she's gonna be,
sure, I hear
up
it.
there.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm able to do healing. My healing output on her is, higher than Zen, which I played a lot previous. But I don't know. I feel like, I could contribute so much. You could just shut down ults all the time, Reapers.
Yeah, she has some really good utility. She has good healing. She has good damage. I see why a lot of people like her.
The offensive grenades, man. The offensive grenades.
I've seen you land a couple of those, and the grenade really, honestly, is a very big part of her kit because people don't realize how much that matters. Shutting down the healing of the other team, it just makes it so easy to take people out, especially when you got people like you're trying to take out a healer like a Lucio or something like that, where he's constantly getting healed and he's just running around and jumping all over everything. Like, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely expect her to still be very viable. I'll still be playing a lot of her, but I mean, it's a fair It was too impactful. It's too swingy. You don't want ults to be like that.
And I think the biggest thing with it is the movement speed increase was so dramatic that it kind of took some of the characters that were rightly so kind of didn't have that movement advantage over
like
other
an ulting
people.
Reaper.
Not just ulting Reaper. I'm thinking more of like a Reinhardt, where like Reinhardt's super slow unless he's charging. He doesn't have good movement. It's very easy to kind of move around him and keep away from him at certain points. But when he gets into that range of hammer range, he's just devastating, especially when he's ulted by Anna. And then that movement speed increase, it's ridiculous, man. I remember the first time it happened to me, I was like, holy mackerel, like, what the heck, where'd that come from?
I'm thinking it's a good change because it'll incentivize using it on your offensive characters, right? So if you're going to be now boosting your McCree or maybe a 76.
It takes some more skill to kind of get that combo off, and it makes it a little bit more situational on who you're using on, So you probably won't see it as much on someone like a Reinhardt. But I'm sure you'll definitely still see it on a Reaper, on a McCree, on soldiers, that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe even like a Winston. Winston would still be good.
Winston's really good because he's got that cleave damage. He's got really good mobility. He can really get in the back line and just mess some people up. So, yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about Mei. She's officially my least favorite character to play against for sure.
Yeah, I got to admit.
I said she was broken last show. I stand by that.
You stand by that? Yeah,
still broken.
I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely really interesting what's going on with Mei because I know previously, I played a little bit of Mei. I really liked her kit, but of course she was not in the meta and she was kind of relegated to troll pick as we were just talking about.
I don't mind playing her. But I just feel dirty if I play her too much,
Exactly. It's really crazy. She shuts down so much, and she's especially with her ult, and I don't know. It's
all right. So speaking of her ult, the Blizzard ultimate cost is going to be increased by 15%. Honestly, I think probably a little bit more. When you headshot someone, you get like 50% ult charge. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's a step in the right direction.
Right. So again, that is on top of the ultimate charge for the 25% global. So it's more like it's more like 40% increase. So, yeah, it definitely needed to be nerfed a little bit. That ultimate, now that they increase the radius of it, especially on certain situations, I think of Temple of Anubis, where she's able to close off a whole area.
The worst hero and the worst map? Oh, man.
Yeah.
Worst combination.
It's bad.
But, yeah. Still don't like her. So let's talk about Lucio. Amp it up, healing decreased by 10%.
Right, so that's another interesting thing with Lucio is he's kind of still, even though it seems like he's been getting knocked a lot lately. He's been getting a lot of nerfs, and I think the reason for that is he's kind of still, even though despite the changes they've made to him in the past, he's still that mainstay second healer pick where he's just pumping out that constant healing. So I think really they wanted to kind of denigrate that a little bit just so it didn't feel like he has to be constantly picked. So.
Yeah, we don't have that many supports on the roster yet, so we could expect there to be a couple heroes, especially with two supports, usually pretty common, to have most of them be kind of like a guaranteed pick. But if you look at the pro teams, you have your Lucio support, and then you have your Zenyatta and Ana support. You have the one guy that plays just Lucio typically. Then you have the other support that will play one of the other three. So that gives you an idea of how serious Lucio's needed.
Right, because the thing is ultimately you think about teams that, especially pro teams, they know to target the healers, and so they're constantly going after the healer. And of course, the person that's probably most vulnerable is that Ana or that Zenyatta, because they're much easier to get to. Zenyatta doesn't have much mobility and such. So, but then you constantly have this Lucio who's not being dealt with. He's just in the back line, just constantly healing people. And I think that's a little bit too much for what it is.
Yeah, so it's a very small 10% less healing. I'm sure he'll still be just as popular as he always has been. Maybe when Sombra gets added, everything gets turned upside down, but we'll just have to wait and see.
We'll wait and see how that works out. But again, of course, we'll be talking about Mercy coming up pretty soon here. And I think with the change they're making to Mercy, we could possibly see some changes there. So again, like I said, they're just trying to, I think, keep everybody as close to the meta as possible and make it to where it's more up to the player's choice on what they want to run.
All right, so let's talk about Zarya. She recently got added to Heroes of Storm, if you guys play that game.
And of course,
she's OP there too.
But, as soon as I start playing her, yeah, she's been pretty OP. I can definitely say that. But as soon as I start playing her a lot and I really like her, now of course they're going to go ahead and nerf her. But it's not that bad. It's only a 20% decrease to the power gain from barriers, but it's just going to make it a little bit longer to charge up her power.
Her energy, yeah.
Yeah, her energy. So again, you have the energy in the beginning. You start off at 0, and as your barriers absorb the damage, they increase her energy up to 100, where she's fully charged and where she's just completely OP and just runs over anybody.
Yeah, I mean, the current competitive scene, people who know how to play Zarya pretty much always have 100% energy charge. And I mean, it's to a point where you don't even play around the shields, you just shoot through them, because if she already has 100 energy, it doesn't matter if, you just shoot through the shield so you can kill the person faster. So, exactly. I mean, when you're getting at that point, maybe you kind of want to tune down the amount of, power gain from.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, I will say that I definitely agree with the changes. I'm not disagreeing with the changes at all. I mean, like you said, she's a little ridiculous right now. Like I said, it's so easy to get charged with her. And when you get charged with her, you just annihilate anybody. There's nobody that can stand against you, really.
Yep, and Torbjorn.
So some interesting changes with Torbjorn too. So they're changing a little bit on the way things work. Like we said, in the past we talked about the little bit of a trick where people were swapping between the hammer and his gun, so that they can actually power up or build up their turrets. Yeah, a lot quicker.
Yeah, so I mean, they removed that from the game. Stealth nerf. Some people thought that was, but right. So some significant changes to Torb. We'll see if we see him in competitive. But so scrap is now automatically generated over time, slowly, which is obviously going to help, getting.
And it's just a small amount of scrap. There still is going to be scrap from your falling enemies and your teammates as well. But of course they're decreasing that by 40%. So it's going to make it a little bit more, I guess, manageable or more obvious how much scrap you're going to be getting over time. Since
it's more
most
streamlined,
of it will be
I think.
From scrap. Yeah, it's a little bit
it'll be less snowbally, right? Is you either have plentiful of them, and they're just, there's 10 armor packs on the point, or you're, starved for it.
Right, exactly. So this will kind of make it more streamlined and more obvious how much scrap you're going to have and how much you can spend.
Yeah, and just for those who haven't played Torb in a long time, scrap is only used for armor packs now. It's not used.
Right, so there's no need for it to, as far as building up your turrets or anything like that. You don't have to worry about that. Again, that's another thing that's kind of streamlined now. But it does help. Of course, armor packs are a pretty big deal. Most people kind of forget how much armor benefits you. To constantly have that on your teammates is pretty big.
Yeah, remember we mentioned it at the top of the PTR, but so when your turret takes damage, it's not going to feed ult charge anymore. And they did make change to his Forge Hammer, so the swing speeds increased by 25%. And they did reduce the damage to bring it in line, because most people aren't using it for damage, using it to upgrade. But yeah, you'll be able to upgrade the turrets a little bit faster.
Right, exactly. So some little changes to Torbjorn, nothing crazy, but I mean, hopefully we'll see a lot more of him in the future.
Yeah, I mean, those Torbjorn mains are going to be celebrating. Yeah, so let's talk about Widowmaker. I think this potentially might be very impactful, so let's talk about it. So the Venom mine,
I will tell you this right now. I did have a little chance to play Widowmaker, and it is, I think, a really big deal with her, and I'm hoping we'll see some more Widowmaker, because I enjoyed playing Widowmaker and I enjoyed having her in the meta. So
yeah, definitely expect some tweaks, I think, on her specifically before this actually goes live. But
right, yeah.
So our Venom Mine explosion doesn't do damage to herself anymore.
Right, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. You can place it right on top of you, and if it gets activated, it doesn't matter. So small change there, nothing big. I think it's just more of a matter of streamlining that and taking away something that just wasn't fun to deal with. Having to worry about where you're standing when someone's chasing you down. So
yeah, but the more impactful change is the Widow's Kiss, which is her sniper. The charge hasn't been increased by 20%. So you're able to get those full-powered snipes 20% faster.
Right, and combined with the last change of her actually being able to scope in much quicker, it just makes getting in and doing that high damage scope much quicker. So you're able to scope in and do that damage a lot more quickly, and it just makes her a lot more powerful overall.
Right, and just a reminder, she does have a special critical modifier on her, right? So the body shots are 100. But the headshots are triple damage for 300.
Right, exactly. So definitely she is one of those characters where you have to have that skill and you have to make sure that you're aiming for the head. Of course, that's going to be the most beneficial for her.
Yep, and let's talk about Pharah. the rocket launcher, the minimum explosion damage has been increased by 25%. Maybe, there's a little buff for her. What do you think?
It is a little bit of a buff for her. So it's the minimum explosion, so it kind of buffs her overall damage, splash damage and such, so that she's able to do a little bit more damage burst than she normally did. So I mean, I feel like in the past she was around, but only because she comboed really well with characters like Zarya, where she could ult on top of them, and with the global change to the ults and her not being able to, of course, have that ult up all the time. I think they needed to tweak her damage a little bit.
Yeah, so pretty much, the way rocket launchers work is they do direct damage, but there's an area of effect, and that's the damage specifically that was increased a little bit.
Right, the splash damage.
Yeah, so the explosion knockback has been decreased to 0, so the minimum explosion knockback. So you won't necessarily get a knockback every single time you're within that the AoE of it.
Right, exactly. So I think that ultimately needed to be changed a little bit too, because I mean it was previously 75%, which is pretty drastic from 75% to 0. But I mean you were just able to knock people back so far. It was a little ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean you have her E as well, which is specifically useful.
Right, exactly. So it was one of those things where you played her on certain maps, that had the pits and the quote unquote environmental deaths. And it just made her a really strong pick on those maps. A little ridiculous, but...
Yeah, so last, let's talk about Mercy.
So now this is kind of what I was talking about. So Mercy has kind of been one of those things where in the beginning of the game, she was probably one of the more mainstream and the strongest healers, because she had that up front, that constant healing, and then also on top of that, then she had her damage boost, and her mobility was pretty high as well. So her passive health regeneration is the only way that she's able to heal herself, which is also important because she's kind of one of the weaker in being able to survive. As far as like we talk about Lucio and such, they're able to survive a lot better, and that's kind of one of the reasons why we're not seeing as much Mercy.
Yeah, we're not seeing Mercy because Genji could just kill her easily, along with some other heroes. Never mind the thunder. That's
the major thunder and lightning going on. I was driving around earlier, and it was crazy. I was seeing it out the window like it was right next to me. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, man. I mean, this window right here is just
the whole house was like moving because of it. But
anyways. So anyways, Mercy. So you're gonna be playing a little bit of hide and seek and a little bit of peekaboo with her, because her regen's gonna kick in after 1 second. Because right now, pretty much if you don't take damage within 3 seconds, she has a little passive heal. So now every 1 second, so people used to pillar humping and World of Warcraft and stuff is used to. You just kind of hide and seek a little bit, just run around the corner often and get that regen.
Yeah, and then if you have to, you stay by your tanks or stay kind of at relative range. But yeah, I mean 1 to 3 seconds is a pretty big change. It's pretty easy to avoid damage for 1 second, and her actual health regen is pretty good on her. It is the only way she can get healed, but of course if you're running her in combination with a Ana, then of course Ana can heal her as well, and I think it just makes it much more viable for her on in the mainstream meta.
Yeah, Pharah and Mercy go hand in hand a lot of times, so maybe a little buff to her, a little buff to Mercy. Maybe you might see that come out.
Definitely.
So let's talk about competitive. So some pretty big news, right? The Overwatch World Cup 2016. We have the different groups, so we know who's going up against who.
Right. So, I mean, this is one of the things that we've been talking about a lot. It's one of the things we're looking forward to. Of course, BlizzCon is right around the corner. And, of course, this is going to be kind of the big thing for Overwatch is the World Cup. So, previously we talked about, the teams, the rosters that we had finally found out. And now, actually, we have the groups as they are.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure these are just generated randomly. So, so we don't have to go over all of them. But, obviously, I think notably Group B has USA, Russia, Germany, and Chile all in the same group.
Right. So I think probably the 3 strongest teams definitely in Group B. Of course, in Group A, we have Sweden. Group C does have Finland. And Group D does have China and France. So those are pretty much the teams you want to look out for. But I expect Group B is going to be the one to watch out.
Yep. And those games will start immediately after the opening ceremony at BlizzCon. And you don't need a virtual ticket to watch these. These will be free. All the eSport events at BlizzCon are free to watch, and Twitch and their other streams that they have on their site.
Yeah, so it'll be relatively easy to find, and you'll be pretty easy to get a hold of these things and take a look. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Like I said, we talked about it over and over again. You guys have probably heard us talk about it in previous episodes about the mixture of rosters. It's not just pro people playing. We have, personalities and other, high-rated players that are going to be playing with them. So it'd just be really interesting to see how things work out. Who knows? You never know. We have dark horses coming through. Maybe we'll see one of those other teams make it out.
Yeah, and let's talk about the Alienware monthly melee. This is something, pretty common. We see these going on. I did catch a good amount of this on Friday. Some pretty good games. So the top 2 seed was Kingdom and Cloud9.
Yeah, so the top 2 seeds went to the upper bracket, and then the others to the lower bracket. And so the top 2 seeds being Kingdom and Cloud9. And we haven't really talked a lot about Kingdom in the past. They're kind of relatively new.
Yeah, they're kind of new.
But been doing really good so far. I mean, a lot of promise with them. I've seen a lot of really good players on their team and a lot of really good plays and just very, very good work.
Yeah, you don't normally see like a brand new team and then them being able to compete with the best of the best. They could fight toe-to-toe to Cloud9. So, yeah, it's something to look forward to for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, they have a guy named Jesus on their team. The memes were intense.
Off the wall, yeah. Yeah, there's always fun memes when you're watching Twitch. But, yeah, so, I mean, basically it was Alienware Monthly Melee. It was the number 2 October Melee. So the upper round 1, Cloud9 versus FaZe. And Cloud9 actually taking that 2-1 to FaZe. So they did a really good job against tough team FaZe. But FaZe battled back. They came all the way through the lower bracket. They took out Rise Nation, took out Immortals, and they went toe-to-toe with Kingdom, taking that 3-2 versus them. And they came all the way back into the finals, 1-3, and they dominated Cloud9.
Yeah, really good games, but some good players on both teams.
Yeah, it's just like we said, we've talked about it in the past. There was a little bit of a roster change with FaZe not too long ago. But they've always been a pretty strong team, but I think they're looking really good right now.
Yeah, most people know who Too Easy is. He is playing on the FaZe team right now, right? Because he's
right.
Many players have been changing rosters. It's honestly pretty hard to keep up with all the changes. But yeah, Too Easy. He's definitely one of the more well-known, better players. Really good on the hit scan characters. Damage.
Yeah, exactly. We were just talking about Widowmaker, and he's one of the ones. If you just search Overwatch Widowmaker plays, you probably run into a lot of Too Easy, really good Widowmakers. But he's really good on the McCree. He's even good on some of the other characters as well. But yeah, he's their main hit scan character.
Yep, and pretty good series. Definitely catch that if you missed it. Let's talk about the Carbon Masters Overwatch. It's got a 7,500 prize pool.
Right, so it's a little bit of a new tournament that kind of came around. So it does have an open qualifier. Well, it did have. It's already over the open qualifier. 4 teams qualified out of the open qualifier, and in the playoffs, you'll have a total of 10 teams. It's 6 invited teams versus 4 that qualified, so 10 teams altogether. And, we had quite a few of the big names, including FaZe, who we were just talking about, and even Kingdom doing a really good job in getting invited to that. So that is still going on right now. We have some of the, bigger teams going up. We have Immortals versus Complexity going on pretty soon here. And the winner of that group will go up against H2K versus Kingdom in a best of 5. And we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, and another tournament we've been following pretty closely every single show is the Masters Gaming Arena. That's by MSI. It's got a $75,000 prize pool, one of the larger ones for sure. It's been going on for quite some time. It's worldwide, so they have the European regions, Asia, Americas. And so the main event is, kind of on the horizon, right?
Right. So, we still got a little bit of time. It is in December 7th through the 8th, and it's going to be in London in the Gfinity Arena. So we do have a little time on that, but we wanted to bring you kind of an update on where we are right now. So we actually do have the 3 teams out of the 3 regionals that will be going up at the main event. And then you also have one other, the MSI sponsor. So it'll be a total of 4 teams. So we have out of Europe came Ninjas in Pajamas, and then we got Kongdu from Asia, and out of the Americas regional, we got Rise Nation, and they will be going up against the MSI sponsor in the main event in the Gfinity Arena 7th and the 8th.
Maybe you and I should try out for that MSI sponsor.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Get a shot at the 75K.
Yeah, it would be pretty much a slaughter fest, I'm sure. But
go to London. Sounds like a fun time.
Hey, it's a free trip to London. We just go there, show up, and then we just sit at our keyboards and don't actually do anything when they destroy us. But hopefully we're not that bad. But I'm sure going up against some of the big teams, we probably. don't fare too well, but
Yeah, I think we could take out Kong Do.
I think we take a Kong Du. You never know.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know Kong Do. They're probably really good.
I'm sure they're really good, but yeah. So definitely keep a lookout for that December 7th to the 8th in the G-Fin Arena. And if you happen to be in London around that time, awesome, check that out. But I think that's gonna do it for this show. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Yes, I just want to say again, thanks so much for listening. The show is brought to you by Two Moon Studios. We would love to hear from you. heroeswelcomepodcast@gmail.com is where you can email us. We are also on Twitter @2moons. I just want to shout out thanks to all the people who have reached out to us. We really appreciate it. We respond to all of the messages. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week. Till next time.
Till next time.